Scott McTominay's deal to Fulham is over, and Sander Berge deal is also over. Ugarte on loan is now hotting up. Sancho exit talk, no new left back, loads of exit talk to go through. This is going to be a absolutely packed video for you with all the latest Manchester United news and transfer news. It's going to keep you right up to date with all of the latest. Welcome to Man United Review. My name's Jamie. Before we get into it, smash a like on the video. And let's just jump straight on into it. It is going to be a packed show. So, obviously, there was loads of noise yesterday regarding Scott McTominay and a deal to Fulham, Fulham putting in a potential bid. There was also stories from Simon Jones in the Mail saying that Manchester United have made a £30 million bid for Sander Berge. I did say at the time I was waiting for some more credibility to kind of follow that story because it was just one kind of outlet. And normally when you get like stories around that, I'd like to see more kind of credibility coming out. So it turns out in a total 180, everything's just flipped totally on his head over the last 24 hours. So Sander Berge is now going to Fulham. So Fulham made a £20 million bid plus add-ons for Manchester United midfielder target Sander Berge. That came from Sky. Then Laurie Whitwell said that Fulham close to signing Sander Berge for a fee of £20 million plus £5 million plus £5 million means Fulham are moving on from Scott McTominay. And then Fabrizio Romano confirmed the deal. Fulham have agreed a deal to sign Sander Berge from Burnley. Here we go. McTominay deal off as Berge joins on 20 million plus 5 million fee. Medical booked for the midfielder. So in a total change of events, McTominay is not going to Fulham because Fulham have signed Sander Berge, which means we're obviously not going to get Sander Berge as well. Let me know what you think about that in the comments. I'm going to go through the McTominay news in a second, but just briefly on that. There's been a couple of reports coming out today suggesting that Burnley are interested in Hannibal, along with an obligation to buy or permanent transfer are being discussed. Now, I don't know the credibility of those sources, but they've come out from been retweeted by like more credible outlets online. So in a really weird situation, so Sander Berge is off. He's going to Fulham. That also means that Scott McTominay will not be going to Fulham as well. But again, and it looks like Burnley might be getting Hannibal as a replacement for Sander Berge. What an absolute madness all of that is, which kind of shows. I recorded my video last night at around, I think it was around 6:30. And it takes a while to edit and do all of this stuff because I'm just doing it by myself, right? And then by the time I put the video out, all the Sander Berge news broke, which was annoying, but that's life. That's the way it goes. I can't predict when news stories are going to be coming out. So let's run through the McTominay updates then. So this came out from, I don't know the credibility of the source, but again, it was retweeted and reposted by more credible news outlets saying that Scott McTominay has refused to leave Manchester United. Fulham were informed of his intentions yesterday. United respect his decision and will not be forcing the player out. Only a high-value offer and interest in projects will sway McTominay and United's decision. So the kind of noise coming out is that apparently, McTominay himself didn't want to go to Fulham, and he made Fulham aware that he wasn't going to move to them. So then Fulham moved on to obviously Sander Berge and got him done. Which it is what it is. We're not like Chelsea. We're not going to force players to sign deals that they don't necessarily want to do. Especially when Scott McTominay, you can criticize his footballing ability and his style of play, but he is a homegrown player that we've had from a very young age at the club, and I think it would be bang out of order to treat a player like that. Look at what happened with Greenwood. With the Greenwood situation, he wanted to go to Marseille, so that kind of deal was the one that we were facilitating and working on, again, because he is a homegrown player that's come up through the youth team, so there is a little bit of, I'm going to say, loyalty, or a little bit of which is right, which is only fair, I think. And then we've had more news since those. So Laurie Whitwell, very credible source, has said that Napoli sporting director Giovanni Manna has travelled to England for a face-to-face discussions over Scott McTominay, and progress has been made. However, there is no contractual agreement, as has been suggested. Alfredo Badula, again, good source, saying that Scott McTominay turned down 2 proposals in the last few hours. He is still waiting for Napoli. And then Laurie Whitwell also said that Fulham have distanced themselves from Scott McTominay when they realised he was willing to wait for offers from other clubs. Galatasaray have made an attractive contract offer, while Fenerbahce are also interested. So a few more kind of stories coming out suggesting that Scott McTominay still potentially may leave, but one, it's going to take a big offer. We knew that anyway. We knew that a club was going to have to get that 25 to 30 million pound kind of mark that United value McTominay as, which I think is a fair valuation considering what other players that I don't think are as good as Scott McTominay have been going for this transfer window, but also for he doesn't necessarily want to take a step down, which, you know, he's still got a contract at United, hasn't he? So unless and you know, it's a valid opinion from Scott McTominay himself. Do you know what I mean? But an exciting project, he said. So potentially Napoli still in the race. Laurie Whitwell confirming that the Fenerbahce and Galatasaray is still there, but they will not have the funds available. So I think a lot of this might depend on maybe Napoli. Obviously, we could have a few other clubs. There were some stories yesterday from the Sun, wasn't there, saying that Palace and potentially Brentford, Everton, there are still a few other clubs interested in Scott McTominay. But we're just going to have to wait and see what happens. But let me know what you think about that in the comments. Now, obviously, in terms of bringing players in, how does that have an impact on us? So what's being said now regarding Manuel Ugarte is that Ugarte is still high on the list of Manchester United with ongoing negotiations between the clubs. George Mendes is still working on that deal that came from Florian Plettenberg. Fabrizio Romano said that understand Manchester United are working on a loan with obligation to buy proposal for Manuel Ugarte. Negotiations to continue with this formula as George Mendes is leading talks with Paris Saint-Germain. Ugarte wants United pushing a lot after personal terms agreed in July. So Fabrizio Romano saying that it now looks like we're still in for Ugarte, so that hasn't really affected things there. However, we now might be looking at a loan with an obligation to buy, which effectively means we'll sign him, but we won't have to pay for him until next year. And then there are talks around how we're going to structure that deal as well, which might be spread out over like a further 3 years. But we're going to obviously need to keep an eye on that one. Florian Plettenberg has also said that concrete negotiations ongoing between PSG and United, along with an obligation to buy, is a possible scenario to finalise the deal for Ugarte. This deal structure was already discussed with United and remains on the table. And then Fabrizio Romano has also said it's like a daily situation. Manuel Ugarte is pushing like crazy to join Manchester United. Along with an obligation will allow the club to start paying from next summer and spread the payment over several years. So what a turn of events that is. So we've gone from yesterday, you know, McTominay's going to go to Fulham was all the kind of noise in the news. We were then potentially we'd put a bid in or an offer made for Sander Berge, still ongoing talks with Ugarte, and now Fulham have got Sander Berge, so he's off the table. McTominay's potentially going to be staying or potentially to Napoli, but Napoli need to sell Victor Osimhen to get the funds in to get McTominay, or unless the Turkish teams can find the money from somewhere to make an offer for Scott McTominay. Otherwise, he might potentially end up staying, which I don't have a problem with. I don't have a problem with McTominay staying necessarily. I just hope they don't give him and make the mistakes of giving him a new contract, because I don't think he's got a long-term future at United. I don't think he suits the style of play that we want going forward. He's still a good squad rotation option to come off the bench and impact games, which is fair enough. But I just hope they don't make the mistake of giving him another contract just to protect the value, because his value is going to be going down anyway. He's 27, coming up 28. And I don't think I think now's the time to kind of cash in on him and get a decent offer for him. But so I hope they just don't do that. He does have a +1 option in his contract anyway, so they might do that if he does end up staying. Or we're going to need to wait for potentially Napoli to get the funds. If they do get the funds available, then that could be an option that McTominay takes. And then obviously the Ugarte situation is now it's looking like we're negotiating a loan. And I was thinking about this, that you know, this has obviously all happened literally overnight. And I was thinking about this before. Obviously, we know we've been at a standoff with PSG, right, regarding, and a lot of that's to do with the fee. They want the 60 million euros. We've been saying, no, we're not paying that. And there's an update on why or where that's kind of coming from, which I'm going to go through at the end of the video. And I was thinking about it. If you think of it from PSG's perspective, right, if they kind of were sat there thinking, well, actually, if you're planning to sell Scott McTominay, we know you're going to have the money available to reach that 60 million euro mark, because I think we've got money available, just not that much left in the budget. I think we're on a really tight budget. And again, I've got an update on that at the end. But I do still think we have some money available, just not 50 million euros, for example. I think we might have like 20 to get because there was the Muppeteers that were saying that we've got the money available to go get Sander Berge, regardless of whether Scott McTominay sold or not. But I think PSG's perspective, they were maybe sat there thinking, well, we know you're going to get the extra cash from McTominay, so we know full well that you can meet the 60 million euro kind of asking price. And that's where the kind of standoff was, where we were saying, no, we're not paying. But PSG were like reading between the lines saying, well, no, actually, because we know you want to sell McTominay. And once you sell McTominay, we know you're going to have the extra cash available. So there could be something like that. And now that Scott McTominay's not going to Fulham and potentially looking likely that he might stay unless Napoli get the funds, maybe now PSG's stance has relaxed a little bit, knowing full well that we don't actually have the cash to do it. And that's maybe why they're a little bit more open to a loan. But let me know what you think about that in the comments. Now let's move on to Jadon Sancho. So there's been a few news stories regarding him. So Juventus have inquired about Jadon Sancho today. That came from Alfredo Padula, who again has been quite credible in the past. Laurie Whitwell, very good source, saying that some people at Manchester United sense that Chelsea may make an approach for Jadon Sancho. It's an open situation. PSG have been consistently linked, but Sancho has not been part of their plans so far this summer. So Laurie Whitwell going against the grain, saying that PSG are not interested in Jadon Sancho, and Chelsea might possibly be in the race. Obviously, Alfredo Padula saying Juventus might still be there as well. And Sky Sports have kind of said a number of European clubs exploring deal for Jadon Sancho. As it stands, he stays, but one to watch in the final 10 days. Romano did say that there's I think it was a 60% chance of him staying and a 40% chance that he's going to be leaving. So there is still, it looks like, some interest in Sancho, whether the teams have got the funds available. And it's all about the wages, isn't it? I think with Jadon Sancho, that's what's kind of putting off a lot of teams. It's on 250 grand a week, which not many teams across Europe can kind of pay. And I can't see Sancho being the type of character that wants to take a particularly massive pay cut to go somewhere else as well. So definitely one to keep an eye on. Obviously bring you any updates if they come out, but it looks like, according to those reports, Juventus might still be in the running for Juventus. First Jadon Sancho. Potentially Chelsea might be one to watch as well, according to Laurie Whitwell. So that will be interesting. I mean, why not? Chelsea seem to buy everybody, don't they? So fair enough. Why would they not want Sancho? But let me know what you think about that in the comments. And let's move on to some more noise around exits. So obviously there was talk yesterday about Christian Eriksen potentially leaving. So again, Laurie Whitwell said Christian Eriksen has been offered to Ajax. Manchester United are asking for at least £5 million. As it stands, there is no expectation of a move as Ajax needs sales. So that could be one that could be on the agenda maybe further towards the end of the transfer window. If Ajax sell some players, they might be then looking to potentially get Christian Eriksen, which I think would be good. Good move for him as well. He's not got a, how many games is he going to get realistically? I'd much rather, as good as Eriksen can be, I don't think he's got the legs to play in midfield in the Premier League anymore. And Toby Collier's coming through as well, so I'd much rather be giving some more minutes to Toby Collier personally. And the other player that's looking likely to be leaving, or is going to be leaving, is Pellistri. Obviously, there was a lot of news and noise yesterday regarding Panathinaikos. Facundo Pellistri to Panathinaikos. Here we go. An agreement has been sealed for €6 million fee. That's less than what it was reported yesterday. It was around 8 million, 8.5 million. There was talk about breaking their transfer budget and stuff. 6 million euros, about 5 million quid. Permanent deal with sell-on clause for United. I actually agree with some of you in the comments the other day that were saying that surprising no other big teams in for Pellistri. I think he's a decent player. I thought that there would be a lot more interest in him. 5 million quid seems a bit cheap for a full international, but have we just got red tinted glasses on? Because again, I don't necessarily think he's done much when he has played. He's had little glimpses here and there. I don't think he's had outstanding loans neither when he's gone away. So it is what it is. Sometimes we can't hold all of these players. And if the market is he's only worth 5 million because only one Greek team are looking at him, that's what it is, isn't it? If there's not a bidding war across multiple teams, then what can you do? What can you do? We can't keep him because he's obviously not in the plans. But let me know what you think about that in the comments. And another shock player that's potentially could be leaving. Odiele. So Maxi Odiele is in talks to join Liga Warsaw. United are prepared to sell him for a small fee and a large percentage of sale. That came from Simon Jones from the Mail. So that would be a really... I thought he did really well in pre-season. He's quite a highly thought-after youngster. So that would be a bit of a shock to me, actually. I thought that he looked decent in the couple of pre-season games that he played. So one to keep an eye on. All right, I don't know how I feel about that. I'd actually think, like, if it was I don't know, we're obviously going to include all the clauses, aren't we? That's what we seem to be doing. Buyback clause, sell-on clauses, all of these kind of stuff when we're selling the youngsters. But that one came a bit out of the blue. Obviously, we need to see how it develops. It's just a report at the moment. But that would be really... I'd actually be a little bit disappointed in that, to be honest with you. But then again, I can't go back on what I just said. We can't hold all of these players. If they're not good enough and the club don't rate them, then, you know, we can get a couple of million or whatever it'll be. It'll not be loads for him, but if it's better for his career as well, I suppose it is what it is, isn't it? It is what it is. But it's, yeah, a bit of a weird one, that. And then let's talk about the left-back situation. So Laurie Whitwell has come out saying that Manchester United has decided not to sign a left-back, which I find a little bit worrying. Samuel Lucas has just come out actually as well saying that provided Luke Shaw does not suffer a setback, he is due back after the September internationals. So is that a gamble? Is that a bit of a gamble? Is that the United's kind of saying, well, actually, we're gambling on Luke Shaw coming back to fitness, and obviously Malacia not having a reoccurrence of any injuries, because he's due back around October time was the latest on that. Do you think that's a bit of a gamble? I do personally. I don't trust Luke Shaw at all to stay fit for any length of time, barring, you know, maybe 45 minutes here and there. He is absolutely... like his body just seems to be absolutely broken. So I think that's a bit of a gamble personally, because obviously we've got rid of Basaka. I know Mazraoui and Dalot can play at left back, but there are only fullbacks at the moment that are fit. Other than that, you're looking to play, you know, Martinez there. I don't think he looks comfortable at left back. You know, Johnny Evans can potentially play there, but he's 36 years old. Do you really want a 36-year-old trying to bomb up and down the flanks? No, I don't think that's particularly suits him. So yeah, I think it's a risk not bringing in a left back personally. But you can let me know your thoughts and your opinions on that in the comments. And then the final story I've got for you is regarding the budget. So United sources have stressed this is the summer of budget discipline and swift market action. Current summer outlay stands at 155.35 million, including add-ons, with an upfront sum of £139.98 million. It was apparent at the start of this summer United would not break the £60 million barrier for a signing. For years, City did the same. The common denominator, of course, is Omar Barada. So Samuel Lucas kind of suggesting what some of you have been saying in the comments, that we do have a tight budget and Ineos are not prepared to break that kind of budget. Obviously, they're worried about the PSR rules and stuff. But that also, we're not going to break that £60 million barrier for any player. And again, that is an Omar Barada thing. That's what City, if you remember, I know they broke it eventually with Grealish. But for years, they would be like, no, we will not pay more than £60 million for a player. And then look at the kind of rewards they got from that as well. They got some unbelievable value for money signings, to say the least, considering... obviously the titles and the quality of player that they've got as well. So the reason I thought that was interesting is because, you know, I've said before, and yous have said in the comments as well, it's short-term pain for long-term gain. Yes, we might miss out on some deals. That's why we walked away potentially from the Branthwaite deal, because it breaches that kind of £60 million mark. That's why we're obviously trying to negotiate with Ugarte. I know it's 60 million euros, so it's a little bit under, but again, we're being strict with our budget and not bowing down and overpaying for players. Like, can you imagine this summer with the Glazers, and Richard Arnold and John Murter, I guarantee you we would have spent £80 million on Jared Branthwaite, wasted all of our budget on that, and then maybe be struggling to find like one, and then probably paid 60 million for Ugarte, and then that would be it. That would be it, and maybe one more player. And that would probably be it. Would have been our summer. We would have wasted loads of, like, overpaid for Jared Branthwaite, overpaid for Ugarte, and then be scrambling around now looking for loan deals and not really fixing any of the problems in the squad. We would have probably sold some of the players that we moved on as well. So just kind of highlight that actually, yeah, it's important to stick within that budget for those reasons, but that also United are trying to change what we're doing in the transfer market, which is only going to benefit us in the long term. But let me know what you think about that in the comments, and let me know what you think about all the topics discussed in today's video. Do enjoy reading your comments. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Don't forget to smash a like on your way out, and I will see you in the next one.